Well, let's get the latest from Kyiv. France 24's Andrew Hilliar joins us now. Andrew, let's start by talking about those drone attacks across the country today. Just how damaging were they?
Yeah, well, overnight, Russia using 35 drones to launch attacks right across Ukraine. We know that several residential buildings were damaged in those attacks. Infrastructure also targeted. We're hearing reports of at least 3 people being injured. Now, Ukraine says it managed to shoot down at least 30 of those drones, and one of the sites that was targeted was right here in Kyiv, a power facility. And earlier today, we actually managed to visit some residential buildings right by that site, and we ran into local residents who basically told us that being next to the site, they've been living in constant fear of being caught up in these Russian bombardments, which is exactly what now has happened. So yeah, you do get a sense of the fear and the panic in the capital, Kyiv, and of course it's all part of Russia's campaign to target, to bombard critical energy infrastructure, which has been causing widespread blackouts, and it's something that people in Kyiv and across Ukraine have grown warily used to.
Well, stay with us, Andrew, because the Russian President Vladimir Putin today arrived in the Belarusian capital, Minsk. He's holding bilateral talks there with his counterpart, Alexander Lukashenko. Now, Belarus is, of course, a close ally of the Kremlin, though this is Putin's first visit to Minsk since before the pandemic, and also since before a wave of anti-Lukashenko protests in 2020, which were ultimately crushed thanks to strong support from the Kremlin. So, Andrew, back to you. What does the leadership in Kyiv make of these talks between Putin and Lukashenko?
Well, yeah, Russia's President Putin, he has held talks in Minsk with the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, the two obviously very close allies. And what the fear here in Kyiv is that President Putin is using those talks as a way to try and convince Belarus to play a more active role in the war in Ukraine. Now, of course, that's something that the Kremlin has outright denied today. But what we do know is, at least since late October, Russian troops have been arriving in Belarus. Moscow says it's to take part in joint military exercises. But again, what Ukraine is saying, they're accusing Moscow of planning to use Belarus as a staging ground to launch what could possibly be a fresh invasion, a fresh offensive over Ukraine's northern border sometime early next year.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed for that update from the Ukrainian capital. Andrew Hilliar.